Hello, today we're going to take a look at how to fill out and sign a PDF form. We'll be using the Intent to Graduate and Major Checklist forms from the Augsburg Registrar's Office. The first step is to download and install the Adobe Reader application. Now there are other applications that you can use to view PDFs, but there are some features in Adobe Reader, which is a free application that we're going to be using today. So I just search in Google for Adobe Reader. The second link takes me right to the download. At the download page, it will have your operating system listed. Here it knows that I'm using Windows 10. If you're using a Mac, it should offer that as well. It also has a bunch of boxes that are checked for some additional things that it wants to install with it. I recommend unchecking those. They are not necessary and can bog down your computer. And then I'm going to click on the Download Acrobat Reader button. I do not want the Pro trial. So I download the Acrobat Reader and go through the steps to install that. Now, it's a pretty typical application installation. You click on the installer, answer yes, and let the application install. So this one has detected that it's already installed on my computer, so I'm going to click finish, but normally there'd be some other steps in between. So it's launching the application now, and you can see the Adobe Reader layout. The first time I launch it, it asks if I want to make Adobe Reader my default PDF application. I do recommend this, so I'm going to choose yes. In the pop-up, it gives me directions on how to set Adobe Reader as the default application. I will click the Continue button, and then it prompts me to press the Change button and to choose Adobe Reader as the default application. I'll choose OK, and OK again. So now Adobe Reader is installed and it's set as the default application to open up the PDFs. So I'm going to close out of this and go back to my browser. So through the registrar's office, I've navigated to the graduation page. And I want to look at two different types of forms that we can fill out here. One is a fillable form, such as the Intent to Graduate form, and another is the Major Checklist. So let's start with the Intent to Graduate form. When I click the link to open this up, it opens up in my browser. To get access to all the editing tools I actually want to make sure that I download this to my computer and edit it in Adobe Reader. So by hovering near the top of the document, I can see the download button. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. Now, when I saved it to my desktop, my browser chose to open it immediately in Adobe Reader. If yours doesn't do this, you might need to take an additional step. Let's take a look at what that could look like. So on my desktop, I've got this file that I had downloaded. If you double click it and it does not open in Adobe Reader, you need to choose to open it in a different application. On a Windows computer, you can right-click on that document and choose to open with Adobe Reader. You could also, if you want to change the setting permanently so that PDFs always open in Adobe Reader, go down to Properties and change the application that it opens with to be Adobe Reader. So back in the document, one thing you'll notice is that this is what is called a fillable form. We've got these fields that are in blue that when I hover over, it clicks to let me type in. I can tab between them and fill this form out. Checkboxes, notes, etc. And so this is A very straightforward fillable form, like many of you have probably filled out before. One feature I want to show is that down here on the signature line, we don't have a form field. But what we can do is use the tools in Adobe Reader to sign it. On the right-hand side of my window, there are some tools, and one of them is called Fill and Sign. If this is not showing up on your computer, you can go up to the View menu, Tools, Fill and Sign, and choose Open. It will ask who needs to fill and sign the form. You do. Click on Fill and Sign, and you'll see that some new options have popped up at the top here. In this document, it's just the signing option. Now, if I click this, it will give me the option of adding a signature or initials. I'm going to add a signature. There are a couple different ways I can add a signature. One way is to type my name, and it will offer to put it in a sort of cursive style font, and you can change the style. If you're using a device with a touch screen, you could also choose to draw your signature. Or if you had an image to upload, you could choose that image. Perhaps you scanned something in. Okay. So I'm going to use my drawn signature here and apply it to the document. Normally you would choose to save the signature, but this is just for testing purposes. Once I choose apply, now I can click in the signature spot to add the signature. And an important message pops up, although it's a little cut off here. And it says, when you add your signature to a form and save it, you are not able to go back and edit any of the existing form fields. So on this form, for example, I've added my signature, and I can go back in and put in this date, but as soon as I save this document, I'm going to save it to the desktop again. I'm just going to overwrite the file I have. Once I save it with my signature, all the form fields disappear, and I can't go back and edit anything further. So on a fillable form, once you add your signature, the form can no longer be edited. Let's take a look at another type of form called a flat form. If we go back to the registrar's website, we had clicked on the major checklists. Let's take a look at the major checklist for biochemistry. Again, when I click this, it opens in a window in my browser, but I want to download it to the computer. I'm going to save it again to the desktop. And again, my computer opened it immediately in Adobe Reader. If yours didn't, you might need to minimize your browser and open the file from your desktop. One thing you'll immediately notice is that there are no blue form fields on this form. This is what we call a flat form. So if I try to click on this line, nothing happens. I can't, there aren't built-in features in the PDF to tell it where the form fields are. But you might notice that on the right side of the screen, this fill and sign button has popped out and said, do you need to fill in this form? And in fact, we can get a couple of new tools through there that were not apparent on the last form. So when I click fill and sign, again, it's you that needs to fill the form out. Click fill and sign. You'll notice now that in addition to the sign option, I now have a text option and some options to add an X, a check mark, a circle, dash, or a dot. I'm going to click on the text option. And you'll notice that as I hover over the different lines on the page, it starts to suggest that they could be form fields. And so if I start clicking on one of the form fields that it suggests, I can start typing. As I type text, if I want, I can use the tools to increase or decrease the text size. And if I don't like where it's created text, I can choose to delete it with the trash can. Now, Adobe Reader does a nice job with this fill and sign tool of detecting where those form fields are. But if you needed to type somewhere that it did not suggest, you can just click anywhere on the document with this text fill and sign tool and start typing. All right, so we could go through, fill this out, and when I hit tab, it puts the cursor where it detects the next form field should be. Now, obviously, you should follow the registrar's guidelines for filling out the major checklist. We're just covering the technical or technological aspects of it. But I want to come down to the bottom of the document. Now, at the bottom of the document, there are two lines, one for the student's signature and one for the advisor's name and signature. Now, since this is a flat PDF form that does not have those form fields, if I choose to go in and sign this document, just typing my signature again, maybe I want it to be larger. Even though I've signed the document, because it did not have actual form fields on it, after I save it, I can continue to use these form filling tools to fill out the form. So this is important because it allows your advisor to come look through your major checklist as you've filled it out, and then after they confirm that everything is correct, they can come down and type their name and signature on the same document. So to recap, when you sign a fillable PDF form that already has the fields created, once you sign it, you can't edit any of that information. However, on a flat PDF, where you're just using the fillable tools to write on the lines, you can continue to fill it out after you've signed it. I hope this information has been useful for you.